Training, also works for residential real estate agents who are trying to level up. My name is Brent Swarts, and if you're here watching this, perhaps you're considering joining eXp or just looking for some commercial real estate broker training or residential broker training. And in last week's episode, we talked all about the purpose of a cold call, And I have two of my amazing eXp Mastery Greater eXp family team members here. And we're going to be brainstorming, masterminding, and doing some hands-on training. We're going to teach a concept, and then we're going to give examples, and then we're going to role play, okay? And so you, as the listener, can dive in and start to do training, because guess what? You want to study and practice what you do, and the more you can get around those who are ahead of you in that training or that expertise, the more you can level up your game, help more of your clients, and grow your business. That being said, please welcome to today's training, Brent Silberbauer and Ciara Sal. We're going to do that for short. Brent, how are we doing, brother?
Doing great. Glad to be here.
Excellent. Ciara, how are we doing?
Good. How you doing, Brent?
Doing well. Thank you so much. So last week, Ciara and I were here. Brent was off in the Bahamas somewhere having fun. And so, Ciara, we covered the purpose of the cold call. So, Ciara, what is the purpose of the cold call?
Yep. Great question, Brett. Yeah, we went over this last week and working on implementing it this week. And for all of you all listening into this audio. So last week we talked about the purpose of the cold call strictly being to get a meeting.
So Ciara, why is the purpose of the cold call strictly to get a meeting? Or another way to put it, what is not the purpose of the cold call?
And this was my answer last week. The purpose of the first cold call can't be to answer all of the questions. A, you just don't have the time for it. And B, you want to sit down with a more dedicated space, also allowing them to bring any decision makers that they may need to into the space to go over the questions that they may have. So the first call, introductions, get them interested, right? That's when we talk about interest generators and get that meeting on the books.
Excellent. And what happens, Ciara, if we start to have that meeting before the actual in-person meeting, right? What was the analogy we used where maybe, we all had friends, who stayed in what's called the friend zone, right? And it was tough for them to break out of that friend zone, right? So what happens if you're giving them all the information, you're answering all their questions? What tends to happen in the client and the expert relationship? What happens at that point?
Yeah, I think it's a great thing to talk about. If you really give them what they think is all the answers that they need, then what else do they need from you? There's no carrot left hanging for them to think like, I got to get together with Brett. I got to get together with Ciara, Brent, whoever it may be, because you've given them what they think are all the answers to their questions right at the beginning.
Which is really not serving them, right? Because at the end of what we're trying to do is actually help people unlock freedom for their capital, for their deals, for what's possible. And if we're only ever being on the phone, guess how easy it is for them to not commit? It's very easy, right? And the things changed when you get in person and you get proposals and you actually dive in. It's almost like, imagine just calling a doctor on the phone. And you just had the doctor's just like, hell yeah, let me talk to you. Okay, that's happening. Okay, why don't you just try this or try that? And, versus like, no, the doctor says, no. You need to come in and see. We need to do tests. We need to do x-rays. I just got dental stuff today. So we had to do it later. And they're doing like, x-rays on the teeth and all the different things, right? They can't just do it over the phone, right? So we don't want to be in the friend zone. We want to be face-to-face. For a couple other reasons too, Brent, maybe you can let's ask you actually before, I won't even assume, but Brent, what do you think we need to be face-to-face? What does that give you as the ability as the expert to be able to help the person you're trying to help?
Yeah, I think one of the big things is they got to know, like, and trust you. So you build a relationship when you're face-to-face rather than just some voice on the phone. You're going to know them. And a lot of it is just trust. When you meet someone face-to-face, there's an element of trust that's built in. You're dealing with usually larger properties. They gotta be able to trust you and know you and like you.
Yeah, business moves at the speed of trust, right? And it's very difficult to build rapport and trust unless we're face-to-face with the client. It's also sometimes not easy to understand really what they're saying, like what the real motivation may be, what that motivation, how deep that motivation is. Like on a scale of 1 to 10, like how serious are you about selling your property? On a scale of 1 to 10, how serious are you about retiring? On a scale of 1 to 10, how serious are you about diversifying your wealth that's tied to this single asset? Sometimes these questions, although they can be asked over the phone, and there may be times that are appropriate for that, you don't have the body language. you don't have the trust built, right? I was on a call the other day with a potential prospect. It was a like a $5 million sale. And I didn't build up rapport at first. In fact, I kind of skipped this step of the rapport. It was a Zoom call, right? And I had been brought in, and it's a short time period. It's a deferred sales trust. The guy's out of state. And by the way, also want to clarify, in person's always the best, right? The next best is a Zoom face-to-face, but it's separate than the cold call, which is just at a moment in time that you're just trying to capture someone's attention, open up some curiosity, change their emotional state of where they're at, cause some kind of energy to transfer to that person to maybe take some action to get a meeting with you. And that meeting could be a Zoom meeting, right? But it's a specific time set in the future where they're committing to showing up and spending their time and energy. For example, there's times where I'll be at the gym and I might get a call and I'll take the call and I'll talk to this person because I'm going to be working out for the next 15, 20 minutes and whatever, right? I may or may not mind talking to the person, but there's other times when I'm like really focused and I don't want to talk to anybody, right? So setting that specific time is going to get that commitment, and it's going to also get them prepared. It's almost like prior to the meeting, they're going to be bringing all of their potential things to the meeting, right? So, so the purpose of a cold call is to get the meeting, right? Not to have the meeting, because if you're having the meeting over the phone call, you're probably going to get stuck in the friend zone and the amateur hour, right? We want to go pro. We don't want to be amateur. Amateurs, right, don't get the meeting. They don't ask for commitment. They just give and give and give and give and give and give and give, and they give a lot too fast. And I had to learn this the hard way, right? We want to, as we're becoming experts, as we're becoming professionals, we have a tendency to want to go really fast, right? Rather than listen and rather than follow the steps. And so it probably took me, I don't know how long it took me to figure that out. But I encourage everybody to first clarify what the purpose of the cold call is for. And once you clarify that, then that's the entire goal. And so, Ciara, what is the purpose of the cold call?
Set the first meeting.
Excellent. And Brent, those meetings could be what? Two things.
Okay. Number one, of first importance, in-person meeting. And number two, if you can't get it in person, then you can settle for a secondary Zoom meeting.
Zoom video meeting. Exactly. Right. Perfect.
Yeah.
Right.
Video meeting,
all right.
Yeah.
So we also touched on Ciara last week that we're working on introduction with confidence, right? Introduction with confidence. So when I'm calling someone, especially for the first time, I'm not hesitant about, is Brent there or is this Brent? Brent answers the phone. I'm assuming it's 100% Brent. What's the downside of that? It's not Brent. It's really not Brent, and I'm off, right? But if it is Brent, Brent's like, oh, hey, what's going on? Like, Brent, like, that's what I'm saying. The first thing I'm saying is I'm not asking a question. I'm just saying his name. And I'm saying it like I'm his best friend. I've known him for years. And he must, wait, have we talked before? Yeah, we might have, but here's the reason for my call, but I'm changing his emotional state as if I'm coming with confidence and clarity and being assertive. Does that make sense, Ciara?
It does. Yep. That was a great exercise last week in the practice of confidence first.
Yes. And so we have certain voices that we can use. There's the late night DJ voice, right? Where it's lower tone. It's going to slow down the process. There's also the assertive, like maybe aggressive voice where I'm kind of what I've been in teaching mode right now, like da 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 da. There's also the kind of the playful, like curious voice. Hey, Brent, Ciara, how are we doing today? It's more of a non-threatening, like kind of your best friend. Hey, what's going on? Kind of more relaxed. In fact, we want to be in that kind of that playful, a curious voice most of the time, because it helps to bring the guards down on someone who's answering the phone, right? So, for example, I might say ring, ring to Brent, and Brent would answer.
Hello?
Brent.
Yes.
Hey, this is Brent Swarts. I'm with Capital Gains Tax Solutions and eXp Commercial. How you doing today?
Oh, man, I'm doing pretty good.
Excellent.
Good to hear from you.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because it's even better to hear your answer the phone, because who these days answers the phone, right? I mean, come on. This is great. I didn't say just robocall, but I'll be a little more focused here. So I'm actually just calling you because I just sold the property down the street from you. It was a $2.5 million deal in Placerville, California. We actually got a record price, even given all the turmoil in the marketplace. And I'm just curious, have you considered at all buying or selling your property at 123 Main Street in Sacramento?
You know, it's funny you call. I just had a conversation with my wife, and we're doing some financial planning, and I think we're getting to the verge where it's almost ready, but we just don't know where else to go with the money.
To go with the money?
Yeah. We don't know where to, 1031 exchange. It's easy to sell. It's hard to buy.
So yeah, the 1031 exchange. Yeah, that can be, it seems like that could be frustrating if you're under those tight time frames of that 45 days a window and 180 days to close.
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, when's the last time you guys did a 1031 exchange?
Oh, about 7 years ago. What a pain. Felt like I had a gun to my head with the IRS. It was crazy.
Gun to your head? Yeah, it seems like that would have been stressful for sure when you bought this property. Curious, how did all this get started with you guys investing in the first place?
Oh, I sold a .com, made a couple million, just wanted to put it into real estate. It's sure and it's awesome. So did that. And then, that increased in value. And then we exchanged into this property we have here.
Excellent. And that's, the reason I'm calling, right? Because there are some sellers right now that are on the edge of like, do I hold it and wait for another market cycle to kind of, take place? Real estate can kind of lag the stock market and it can take a little while for it to turn, but we're seeing some of those signs of it turning. And do they really want to, deal with the toilets, trash liability, or just have all of their eggs in one basket? So curious, like, have you guys considered at all looking at, you mentioned a financial plan, but making like a financial plan for your real estate asset in the last few months?
No, not at all.
Seems like that might be something that would be clarifying for you. In fact, I do these all the time for clients and potential clients like yourself. And I actually have a lot of the comps and a lot of the research already done. Would that be something that might be of interest to you if I were able to kind of give you a full analysis on your property?
Yeah, of course. Absolutely.
So in order to do this, we do ask for a little bit of commitment, which is a little bit of your time and energy. In fact, I'm going to be in your area next week for about an hour. I'd love to come by and sit down with you. And if you're married, if you have a spouse who wants to join us, I would love the opportunity just to go through, understand where you guys are coming from, and see if we can't just look a little bit of your numbers. How does that sound?
Yeah, sounds great. I mean, why not?
Great. Okay. So then I close for the meeting. Great. I'll meet you there. Right. So if any point he's hesitating or not actually showing that motivation, that was kind of a softball, right? He was just positive, and then said yes. Right. Great. That's really simple. But I also wanted to dig in a little bit more to try to find something, right? But at the same time, if there's no real opportunity to not say yes, still get the meeting, right? Still get the meeting. It doesn't really matter. Just get the meeting. Go meet with the person, even if they're not in the ability to sell right now. Because sometimes someone might tell you, "Oh, I'm not selling." Okay, still a great reason for us to meet, because we can help to increase your income, increase your income, decrease your expenses. We can also game plan and look at ways to market the property with your vendors, like whatever it might be. I don't know for sure, but until I get in person, they might not even tell you they're ready to sell until they actually sit down with you and go through it. So, okay. So that's the purpose of the cold call. That's the voice you typically want to be using. Okay. You want to be asking questions. Notice how I mirrored Brent too as well. When he said 1031 exchange, I said 1031 exchange. And then when he said, yeah, it can be this and this and that. And I said, oh, it seems like it could be stressful. And then I said like a win question, win, because I didn't really know what to say at that point. I was like, well, when did you last do one? Right. And so I'm just keeping the momentum going forward. I'm mirroring what he's saying. Okay. And I'm maybe summarizing what they're saying. So I'm actively listening. And then I'm listening for windows of opportunity, right? Anything that I could hold on to as a reason to meet and convert that into a reason to meet. Okay. If they hesitate or they're not sure, right? Then it can also be, you can invite them to a future event. You can invite them to watch a video. You can invite them to read an ebook. You can invite them with something of value, or you can follow up with them. Hey, Brent would have said, nah, I'm not quite ready to meet yet. Hey, no worries. We're putting on a building wealth event, commercial real estate wealth event in about a month. It's going to be actually an online event. It's not as intense, inviting clients and friends and family there. We're putting on this other live event. We're going to, be doing this open house here, whatever it might be. Always invite them to the next event, because that also creates momentum and a reason to follow up in the future as well. Any questions on anything I just said right there?
This is great. This is fantastic.
Okay.
Pure
Okay.
fire. Yeah.
Excellent. So now let's move to if we actually get the meeting, right? If we actually get the meeting, now what, right? Well, one, you got to make sure you're ultra prepared. You've been by their property. Have you actually driven and walked the property, right? And if it's been a couple years, be careful of that, because there's times when they paint the property and you haven't been by there a while, and all of a sudden, like, oh, they did paint the property, right? Or I've even done this where I've used an old, a general marketing, overview, and I used an old picture. I'm like, ooh, shoot, it's like, oh, I actually painted. I'm like, yeah, it's been a couple of years since I've been by the property. So go by the property, right? Especially if it's on the way, especially if you're driving or it's a long distance, right? Get by the property. There's nothing like getting on the property and seeing something there that you can't, bring the attention to the client. Hey, I was just by your property. In fact, that's a great interest generator. Not just, I just sold the property. Hey, I was just by your property last Tuesday in the afternoon. Man, it looks like parking is packed. It looks like, people are, It looks like the pool looked really good. Landscaping is on point. Man, like the property was looking really good, or whatever it might be, right? Or the fence, there was one part about this. And the reason I'm calling you is I just couldn't help but think like, wow, that property looks like it's running really well. And you might be able to sell it for a really great price. I know you may not be buying or selling right now, but I'm just curious, have you thought about, what your property might be worth in today's marketplace? And just be quiet, right?
Yeah.
Using anything that you can be particular to their property. In fact, when you call somebody, you also want to make sure you're not just you're calling about their specific property. I'm calling about the Ashley Place Apartments. I'm calling about the, Wood Creek Mobile Home Park, right? At 123 Main Street, and that you're being specific about that particular property. It's not just a general call. And I've been to the property. I just sold the property. I just looked up a comp down the street. We just had a lender do something. It's going to narrow it down from all the noise of just general, are you buying or selling real estate, right? It's like, no, I'm calling about your property. I'm very serious about that. Okay, so you get the meeting and you're showing up. So you've done the comps, right? You've done the rent and the sales comps. In fact, you might even have a printed out list and you're reviewing those. You're looking at who the buyers were, who the sellers were, who the lender was. You might even call the buyer. You might even call the seller. In fact, that's a good thing to call them. Hey, I'm doing another analysis on a property down the street from you. I'm not calling to see if you're buying or selling. I'm just curious about how the whole transaction went as a buyer. Oh, they'd love to tell that. All of a sudden, a broker's calling me about why I bought the property and they're wanting to understand that. Hey, man, congratulations on the purchase. Like, that's fantastic. You just bought those 100 units. Looks like you got a really good deal on it. Curious on just the ability to add rents and grow the value. The reason is because I'm doing an analysis for another client down the street, and we're just trying to make sense of value, right? So can I just maybe pick your brain for a few minutes about the property? People love to share their success stories of buying the property. So you call them and you talk to them about this, and guess what might happen? Brent, man, you sound like you're Ciara. You sound like you're really leaned in. You're focused on this. I got another property on the street that I might sell, right? Or you might ask him, if you build that rapport at the end of that conversation, hey, by the way, I know we're talking about your other property, but is there anything else you might buy or sell? If you built some of that rapport and you built some of that trust, and you built some of that right? You might move that, but you might, so don't think that you have to be the same script every single time, right? You might mix it up. And the key is, am I adding value to the person? Am I building some rapport? And am I generally actually concerned about solving their problem? And when you come at it from that approach and you use the windows of opportunity to close for a meeting, and you actually have a solution to their problem, you can get meetings, and then you get the meeting. Okay, so now we're finally getting to the meeting. I know I keep kind of backing up, but I just keep thinking out loud here. So now I get the meeting, and now what, Ciara, is the purpose of the meeting?
The purpose of that first meeting? I'm sure the textbook answer is probably to get the second meeting.
Yes, if you go on the first date, Ciara, right, as a guy or a gal, and if you like the other eye, the goal would probably be to at least get on the second date. So yes, good answer. What else comes to mind, Ciara, about the purpose of that meeting?
Well, somewhere in here, you want to start weaving in offering them the analysis or the proposal. And you can do that in the first one, or if if the waters don't feel quite warm yet, then I would go for that second date and set up that second meeting.
Okay, pretty good answer. Brent, what do you think the purpose of the first meeting is?
I don't know the textbook answer, to be honest with you, but I'm going to say to build rapport primarily to build relationship, to get them to know, like, and trust you.
That's a great, that's a great answer. Yep. And so you guys are both right, but now let me try to put these pieces together. Okay. So the first thing you're doing is you are building rapport. In fact, we want to put like 80% rapport. In fact, our goal would be 80% of the time they're talking. Okay. And only about 20% of the time of actually maybe even offering something per se, right? Or even talking about ideas of potentially offering something. And this is so important, right? That now here's the reality too. You've also got to read the four different type of personality types, right? Or the 4 different type of commercial real estate owners. There are what's called the herbivore. Okay. If you think of it like these dinosaurs, right? Dinosaurs. Do you remember what herbivores are? Herbivores are pretty typically slower creatures. Okay. Or slower. And they're typically, they'd only eat like the plants, right? And they're more gentle giants if you're in the dinosaur world. Now the herbivore are who? They're the mom and pop types. They maybe own 2 to 5 properties. They typically have never really sold. In fact, this is their retirement plan. Okay. And they're not fast movers. Okay. They're not fast movers. They're very, huge on, everyone's huge on trust, but especially they're not professional real estate owners. In fact, they have there's the other profession is, they're a doctor, they're an attorney, they have this other business, and that's their full-time thing. And they happen to own a few of these properties that they maybe even paid off, they're fully paid off, and they're just producing that passive cash flow. And this is their retirement plan, right? This is the ability for them to actually finally be retired, is this real estate. And so they're also their person. So that's like the general like category, but then also their personality type might be one that's more talkative or more analytical or more, a little more amiable or more aggressive, right? And so you want to figure out, is this person wanting to get right down to brass tacks, which is like a driver personality, or are they wanting to get into the numbers, more analytical, or are they more expressive? They like to talk. And so you want to make sure you're doing your best to understand what personality you're walking into and how to build rapport, right? How to build rapport. But the key is to build some rapport. And you want to say something like this. Hey, first of all, I'm so grateful for your time. I know you probably get a lot of call from a lot of brokers wanting to meet with you. And I'm confident by the end of this meeting, we're going to have a clear plan and maybe some good ideas to help you move your wealth forward. But before we go into any of that, I'm just super curious. Could you just tell me a little bit about your story, how you got here, and your current focus? Okay. And now it's open-ended. And that more about your story, right? Well, that could be a lot of different things, right? And they might take that to their past, when they grew up. They might pack it to just their real estate aspect, their business, their family, whatever that is. And as they're talking about that, here's what's going to happen. So Ciara, thank you so much for the opportunity to meet with you. I'm just curious, would you just tell me a little bit, before we get into all to the business stuff, I always just like to start with just understanding a little bit where you're coming from. Would you tell me just a little bit about your story and your current focus?
Yeah, for sure. I guess it started 20 years ago when I bought the property. I was looking for replacing my income back in the day, and it has done that, and it has been a whole second job ever since then. I've really enjoyed it, but obviously the reason we're here is my husband and I are kind of talking about what's next.
So 20 years ago.
Yep.
That's incredible. So it's 2022. So it's like 2002. I was just graduating from high school in 2002. That's incredible. So did you have the family or anyone helping you out with this as you guys built this up?
Yeah, my husband helped out. My mom was my COO for a while, but really the main responsibilities came down to me. So I make most of the decisions, but the husband's also involved. So that's why he's here today.
So it seems like it's been like a family business. You guys kind of all pitched in and did this thing together. And now you mentioned second job. What do you mean by second job? What was the first job?
Oh yeah, I was in sales management before, and I was looking for something that was a little bit more passive than what I was doing, which is why, I bought these 100 units. They ended up not being quite as passive as I thought, but it was more a business I could come in and drive. That's, you know, the whole story of being in it for 20 years. And it's really now become like my retirement nest egg. Never really would have thought that that'd be the case, but here we are.
That's so cool. So you're in sales management as the primary. You're looking for something else to be more passive, because that sounds like it's pretty active, probably hurting all the cats that are in sales. I know how that goes. And but it ended up being a little more active than you thought. I'm curious, what was the thing that was the most active part that seems to be the thing that takes up a lot of time and energy?
Yeah, it was just the management of the people. I never really outsourced, you know, going through applications and backgrounds and then tenant turnover and like all of the maintenance and repairs all fell on me. So I was the coordinator for everything and always have been. Like I said, I've had some family members step in and do some things, but really I've been responsible for like running this business.
Seems like you're like a superwoman. You got your primary business, you've got the secondary business, you're managing your sales, the sales team, you're also managing your family, and then you have all these 100 tenants to work with as well. It seems like you've built up some resolve to push through all of that adversity.
Yeah, it's been quite the journey, you know, worthwhile, but I don't know that I would do it over again. And that's kind of where I'm stuck with this property is I don't really want to place the money into another asset that I have to manage.
So with stuck, it seems like you feel like if you don't sell, you have to continue on with what all of the active and the continual work there. But then stuck, if you trade it, it might be you might put yourself in the same position or different. I mean, at least this is what I've heard from different clients. Is that does that seem unreasonable there?
Yeah, no, that's exactly it. I either keep the tenants I'm already dealing with, or I would just, if I sold, I don't want to pay the taxes. So it'd go into another asset and there I would be like managing something new that I don't even know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense, and that's honestly, taxes is you know, death and taxes are the two biggest things, and it's something you have to plan for and be prepared for. We do have a unique solution for that, and we could talk a little bit about that more and in a few minutes. But talk to me about the actual asset itself. Like, do you feel like how is it performing? Right? You know, do you have an income and expenses statement? Where do you think the valuation and the timing of the overall market is? Let me back that up. So before you even think about, you know, solving some of those challenges, where do you think the market's at right now? What's your gut telling you as far as if it's a good time to transact or sell real estate?
Well, Brett, you know, I often wonder these things. We were looking for a new house last year, and just based off of the housing prices, I mean, it was wild. We weren't willing to go, you know, several hundred K in our area where we're at above asking prices. And so I can only imagine what it's like in commercial right now. I haven't had time or done a lot of study on what's going on in that world, but obviously we all know how high the rates are. And I would assume probably that overbidding has come down a little, but that's my assumption of where things are at. And I'm just not willing to go up against that. So it's kind of where I'm just sitting where I'm at.
So it sounds like you might believe it's a good time to be a seller because you can get these really high prices, but on the reverse, it's not a great time to be a buyer. Am I off there?
No, that's exactly right. And that's where my problem is I would love to exit, but I don't want to pay the taxes and I don't want to be buying another asset right now. So that's where I don't really know where to go.
Yeah, it seems like you need a solution to your capital gains tax in this 1031 race. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, if something like that existed, that would be great.
Cool. And then and there is something that exists, right? Which is part of what I would like to talk to you about, you know, and look at a proposal and really kind of detail this out for you. So it sounds like there's actually some motivation to sell. Like if you actually had a good solution to those two challenges, deferring the tax or, you know, mitigating the tax and being able to be a little more passive or retired, it seems like you actually might be a seller given that the market conditions are boding well for you in like pretty kind of a high price right now. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah. If there was a solution, I think my husband and I would seriously talk about being sellers.
So here's what I have to offer you, and I'm just curious what you think about this. Okay, so we do what's called detailed pricing and financial analysis, where we not only review your income and expenses statements, but then look at the comps, look at the rent comps, look at the sales comps, but we really dial in on what we think the marketplace would pay for your asset in today's marketplace with a new loan quote. It's extensive research and due diligence, and in fact, I'd actually like to view your property as like a ghost tenant, so no one really knows, but just to really get a chance to understand and know your asset in a detailed way. with you and your husband's permission, I'd like to do a no cost pricing analysis, no obligation to you to sell. But this, I think, will give us all of us a good, clear framework with where you're at and what's possible for the sale, but also maybe some great opportunities to build on the asset to prepare in case you do want to sell down the road. With that, I also want to provide really 3 options for your way to defer capital gains tax and grow your wealth. It'll take me a couple of weeks to put this together, but assuming we can agree on price and terms, and we have a solution to your satisfaction for how to defer capital gains tax, as well as how to be, potentially passive for your equity. Is there any reason that you could think of right now why you wouldn't allow me to exclusively list your property and sell it for you and deliver on those 2 objectives, what you're looking to achieve?
No, I think really if, we got the price that we think it's worth, and I guess based on your analysis as well, at the end of the day in our pocket, and it sounds like a way to put more in my pocket if we can mitigate some of the taxes, then I think that sounds like a win-win.
Excellent. So assuming we agree on price and terms and we, to your satisfaction, deliver those 2 things, is there anything else that comes to mind that would say, I'm not sure if I would sell, and maybe even to your husband's mind? I know he's not here right now, right? He'd be on the next meeting, but is there anything that you might come to mind that could, that I could prepare for and maybe address during our next meeting?
Yeah, I know he'll ask you what your commission rate is.
Yeah, our commission is 6%, and it's 3% to the buy side, 3% to the seller. But assuming we can agree on price and terms and your husband's comfortable with that commission, and we solve those 2 major objections that you talked about, deferring the capital gains tax and being a little more passive with your retirement or investments, is there any other reason you think he might bring up or you might have that I could prepare for our next meeting?
Yeah, I think he'd want to know timeline wise what it would take for an analysis and a potential listing, and then for the deferral of the taxes. I think we'd be real interested in that.
Yeah, the analysis takes about maybe, a couple weeks, and then we could get the property properly marketed a couple weeks after that. Listing is about a 6-month period, right? But we'll go over that entire timeline with you to make sure you understand that, and also the timeline for the potential 1031 exchange and all those different things. But assuming we can agree on price and terms, the commission, the timeline, as well as solving your 2 major objectives and goals. Is there any other reason you could think of? It could be anything you could think of that I could help prepare for why you wouldn't list the property with me and let me sell it for you?
No, honestly, Brett, can't think of any.
Excellent. And so now at this point, Ciara, I would like to build some more rapport, and I'm going to say, look, I'm going to go back and do a proposal for you. I'll be back in 2 weeks. Make sure your husband can be there. Can your husband be there? I'm looking at my calendar. Does that work for you? Great. You say yes, yes, yes. So you want to dial all that in, and then I'm going to build some rapport again. I'm going to say, Ciara, man, we just had Thanksgiving. Did you, I got a couple kids, maybe you have some grandkids. How did it all go with you? And I'm going to go back to building more rapport. Okay. So I'm going to sandwich the meeting with rapport. So it's rapport, business, and then rapport. Right. And I'm going to try to keep this going and not unnaturally, right? It's definitely genuine. Right. And also if we have time constraints, so we understand that we would be respectful of that. But I generally want to know, right? Man, this is an amazing house, beautiful house. Tell me about the story of the house. Tell me about the story of the kids. Anything to build rapport. Look at that, that thing on the wall. Look at he's a hunt. You guys hunt. You guys do this. Anything to build rapport and connect with people to get to know them, like them, and trust them on your side, and then vice versa. Does that make sense?
Yep.
All right, Brent, what insights did you bring out of that whole meeting right there?
Oh, super good. Just how you went about it, the lines. I really like the line. I wrote it down. Assuming we can agree on price and terms, any reason it would not allow me to exclusively list or sell the property. Just that kind of that if clause. If I can do this, then will you close? Will you sign on the dotted line? I just think that's a key one that I have to just have roll right off my tongue, super quickly, easily, and effortlessly.
Yep. Good. Ciara, what else did you take out? Go ahead, take that note.
Yeah, I would agree with you on the rapport on the front side, and the meet in the middle and the rapport on the back end. I think that makes it really personable and relational. I think that's really helpful. And then, yeah, on top of what Brent said about that amazing line for exclusive listings, I think you kind of you take what I said and then you confirm it back to me, as in making sure that you're digesting the information correctly and then waiting for me to put up any objections to what I have already said. And I think that's golden.
You nailed it. It sounds like it feels like, it seems like, write that down. It seems like, it sounds like, it feels like. It sounds like you might be a little bit concerned about commission. Yeah. We had this broker who charges 6%, Brett, and I feel like he didn't do anything for us. Didn't do anything for you? Yeah, I mean, he just threw it on the MLS and it sold in like 2 days, and he died double-ended, and all the money, and my husband didn't really feel good about it because he didn't feel like he shopped the offers. He didn't shop the offers? Yeah, he didn't shop the offers, didn't really negotiate. It just seemed like he just slammed it together and really didn't look out for us. Man, it seems like you hired the broker that didn't treat you with the fiduciary responsibility. I can tell you, I will never give $1 away from you guys. I will never negotiate $1 away from you that we don't priorly, we don't previously talk to, have authority to do that. I treat my clients like family, and I'm committed to getting the highest price and the best terms for you. I'm just doing a potential role play here, right? Where I'm going to mirror, and I'm going to say it sounds like, it seems like, it feels like, and then I'm going to mirror back or summarize what was just said. Seems like you guys are probably frustrated with this capital gains tax, and you felt trapped maybe for a period of time that you've wanted to sell in the past. Perhaps I might even test a little bit, right? You might have said that little thing at the end, but I might just test with that and be like, actually, I've been wanting to sell for 5 years, right? Whoa, 5 years? Yeah, I've been ready to be done for a while, but this is the one thing where I'm ready to sell, but he's not willing to pay the tax. Sounds like if you guys could sell at the good price and not pay the tax, that you guys could come together. And all of a sudden, you're like a relational therapist. You brought them together with their marriage and their family, and they're like, oh my gosh, I never believed this was even true, right? That I could free up my time and my energy and my effort and my stress with the solution that also defers with the capital gains tax, right? Okay. So it sounds like, it seems like, it feels like, okay, great. Now, what is the purpose of this meeting? Talk about building rapport, know, like, and trust. Yes, yes, yes. Uncovering motivations. Yes, yes, yes. Uncovering needs. Yes. Uncovering story and understanding and maybe potential ways to solve problems. But the main purpose of all of this is to determine if a proposal is warranted to solve their problem. Is to determine if a proposal is warranted to solve their problem. So, Brent, if I go there and there's no motivation, there's really no pain, there's really no ambition, and I might ask a question like this: hey, Brent, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 10 being like you're ready to sell right now, and 1 being, it was role play right now, Brent, and 1 being like, I'm not a seller at all, really, Brent. Just, where are you, Brent? Just tell me you're a 2.
I'm a 2.
Hey, Brent, I totally get it. It sounds like, it seems like, it feels like, however that comes out really smooth, that you're really not ready to sell right now. Totally respect that. This proposal, that we can look at it in 2 ways, right? We can look at kind of the income and expenses aspect of it and look at it as a way just to increase efficiencies. And I still like to do that. And that's what I would propose to you as a solution for just building your business or building your real estate to a point where it's ready to sell. And so, with your permission, I'd like to spend some time just understanding your income and expenses in your rent roll, and just kind of give you some insights. And I might even just give you a rubber stamp and say, hey, it looks really good. Is that something you'd be interested in?
Sure.
Okay. So now on this particular thing too, I may or may not even come back and meet with them in person, depending on how far or close they are to me, depending on how big the deal is, right? But now that I've determined that he is not a 7, 8, 9, right, or 10, I probably not going to spend a ton of time and energy. I might even do like a review of his deal, but I'm not going to do the full blown sales, rent comps, pictures, all this fluff if he's not even serious, right? Or if there's not real pain behind why he's not selling. Does that make sense? So I'm determining his emotional state and his motivational state throughout the entire meeting. And if I don't feel it's warranted, I'm not going to spend my time and my energy focused on chasing after trying to convince somebody through a proposal, right, that it's time to sell. He's not going to sell, right? He's at a 2. Now, if he says something like, I'm at a 2 if you can't solve my capital gains tax problem, Okay, well, assuming I could solve your capital gains tax problem to your satisfaction, not even using a 1031 exchange, forget about that for a second. On a scale of 1 to 10, how serious would you be about selling? And Brent might say,
yeah, that sounds interesting. Tell me more. The capital gains you're talking about?
Yeah, capital gains tax solutions. We actually specialize in a way to defer capital gains tax, not using a 1031. And now I'm going to tell a story. This is really cool. So when you say tell me more, instead of telling you benefits of the thing, I'm going to tell you a story. Here's the story, Brent. Yeah, and in fact, I had clients that are very similar to you, married couple, been in real estate for 30 years. They actually had a duplex in Manhattan Beach. I don't know why they ever sold, but they did. And they 1031 exchanged into the property in Placerville. And they've owned this property for since 2008. And they basically have doubled their value, but their NOI hasn't gone up that much. Now, time and energy, and they had a couple, two twin daughters a little bit later in life, and they're wanting to travel and spend some time with them, kind of lower their stress. But they're tied to this property, and they're feeling trapped by the capital gains tax. And so, they get calls all the time. In fact, I'd call them before I even knew about what I'm about to share with you in a second. But they search and search and search. They get called all the time, but they just really dismiss it because they just go, you know what? I have 15 problems. I don't need 30 problems. I'll just stay where we're at, but we're not going to sell and pay the tax. We're also not going to sell and do a 1031 exchange. So enter the Deferred Sales Trust, which has really been literally a transformation for their family. It's not just the deferring of the capital gains tax, it's freeing up their time and energy to be entrepreneurial if they want to be, or to be passive in retirement, which they kind of want to be as well. In fact, it kind of gives you both the passive and the active opportunity. And so they use the Deferred Sales Trust, which we're experts in, to not only defer the capital gains tax, sell at the optimal time, and have a transformational exit plan. I know it sounds like a lot, but with your permission, I'd love to put a proposal together, figure out what the highest and best price is for your property, and then also put an exit plan proposal together, bring in one of our strategic alliances, one of my business partners, who can lay this out for you. It's really incredible. But assuming we could agree on price and terms for the sale of your property and the exit plan to your satisfaction, is there any reason if I came back in 2 weeks with those proposals that you wouldn't exclusively list the properties with me and allow me to sell the property for you?
No, if you could solve those problems, I think that'd be great.
Excellent. That sounds really great. Well, I appreciate that opportunity. I need your rent roll. I need your current income and expenses statement. Those are the two things I need. Also want to get with your lender to make sure there's no huge prepayment on what you owe on the property. So with those three things, let's, if you can get that to me, do you happen to have them on you now? Sometimes they walk in, oh yeah, right, let me print them off for you. And they hand them to you, right? That's always better to get them on the site, right? Versus waiting for some email that could take weeks and lose that momentum. Okay. So, or do you have a property management that you could put me in contact with who will provide me that information, right? Whatever it might be, a bookkeeper, just give me the authority to go to that person to get that information. I'll put it together in a couple of weeks. I'll be back. And then I'm going to build some more rapport again. So what is Ciara, what's the purpose of the meeting? First meeting.
The purpose of the first meeting is to determine if the proposal is going to solve their problems. Yeah, yes, and determine if a proposal is warranted to solve their problems. So do they even have problems? And is your time and energy to put the proposal together to even solve their problems even warrant it, right? Because they actually have motivation. So Brent, what's the purpose of the first meeting?
So see if a proposal will solve their problems and if it's worth your time to do it. Exactly.
You got it, right? So it's not to present the marketing plan. It's not to present the price. It's not to present the solutions. Although you might say, hey, the range is approximately here or here, right? If they really press it, the solution is a 1031 or a deferred sales trust. It's okay to but you're not going to share the how, right? You're going to share the what and the why and stories, right? The what and the why and stories. But for your particular deal, I'm going to have to really analyze it. And it's true because you don't want to get there and promise the world and not analyze it. And then all of a sudden you come back and you look foolish, right? So on my next meeting, I'm going to come back with a full detailed analysis of your property, of the comps, of the income and expenses statements, of where we think we can sell it for, plus a couple options for you to sell and defer the capital gains tax. And I promise you, I will get into all of those details. It'll take me about 2 weeks to put it together, put a lot of hours into it, but it's all no cost, no obligation. I'm confident that I'm going to deliver on what I'm saying here. Just give me, if they're really, okay, well, I can maybe put it together in 1 week. I usually say 2 weeks just to be safe. I can put it together in 1 week if you'd like, and we'll go there. Any questions on that, Ciara or Brent?
No, that's great. Tons of value.
Okay. Right.
All right, so that's the training for today. On the next training, we're actually going to go what happens. We'll probably do the building of the proposal and the underwriting part of it, right? Because now it's in between those two meetings. So what are you doing to underwrite? What are you doing to build a proposal? What are you doing with photos, right? Kind of the marketing piece. How are you putting this thing together to actually show up? And then from there, we'll do the next one, which will be actually showing up, okay? But in the meantime, what is your one big goal this week, Ciara? The one big thing, if you accomplish this week, more than anything else, would give you the most momentum moving forward.
Sure. For my brokerage team, my goal is to reach at least 50 people for a listing that I have in North Carolina. So that's what I'm working on.
Excellent. So 50 touches to sellers or buyers. Who are these 50 people?
Yeah, the goal is to find a buyer, but also to be connecting and networking with other potential sellers. So it's really like 50 networking people, but I'm also putting a deal in front of everybody.
So 50 owners in the area you want to connect with who are either buying or selling real estate?
Yep.
All right. Report back next week to how that goes. Brent, what's the number one big goal this week? If you knocked it down, it would move everything forward.
And you already know, is to put together this proposal for Ann and Paul Leathers on Friday at 1.
Excellent. And so let's talk about that for a second. Do we have their income and expenses statements? Do we have their current rent roll?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We do. We have all of that. And but we've never met with them in person, right?
Never met with them in person. They live in like LA.
We've never had a Zoom meeting.
Yes, we have. I have had.
We did. I was on that.
We both had it. And I've had one before that, where I did I did my report on the state of Chico student housing and how the attendance is going down, how it's affecting all the stuff, supply and demand, all this stuff.
Yeah, you built some know, like, and trust, and you built some rapport, right? With the husband and wife, right?
Yeah, and I've sent them podcast videos, and I sent them mailers and all kinds of stuff.
Good. Okay, great. So
we're probably at 20 touches right now.
Right, and we sort of had the first meeting, or at least on the phone call, at least, right? When we had it for about 40 minutes with her, right? So we built some of that up. So yeah, no, I think this is it's not ideal. It's never going to be perfect, right? It's never going to be just cookie cutter meat and this and this. Some of it's going to have some overlap, but this is ideal. You're keeping it in these boxes, especially in the beginning, right? Because if you're not, it's very difficult until you've developed a huge closing track record and you're an expert to do anything beyond these segments. And so, yeah, okay. Ciara, great job. Brent, great job. If you need anything, let me know. And my biggest thing this week is I'm flying out to Florida to view some properties. So I'll be hanging out there for a couple of days, locking some properties down, meeting with our top strategic alliance, and then flying back, and also bringing on another full-time VA. So now we're up to 6, right, this week. So we're onboarding this week. That's big for us. And if we can get that there, we can free up more of my time and energy to create more content. That being said, if people want to learn more about everything you just heard just now, you go to expmastery.com, expertcresecrets.com, capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. You can look up Brent Silberbauer, Ciara Salayandia, pronounce that last name perhaps correctly, or Brett Swarts. We so appreciate everyone out there, and we will talk to you real soon. Bye, everybody.